So I might just pass on over to Emma. Hi, Emma. Thank you for being here.
Hi,
But
how are
I
you?
do good, good. Emma Hunter is the deputy principal at Wakefield School in the South Island of Eritrea, New Zealand, and the founder of the Brain Hug Charitable Trust and chairperson of Kingsley School, New Zealand's National Care and Protection and Youth Justice School Network. She's also a PhD candidate at QT, supervised Professor Judith Howard and Dr. Lyra Lestrange. I know both Judith and Lyra. You are lucky. Her research project, Growing a Resilient Eritrea Through Culturally Responsive, Trauma-Informed Education in New Zealand, Guidance for Educators. This examines what is required to create effective, culturally responsive, trauma-informed educational practice across Eritrea. So please join me in welcoming Emma Hunter.
Okay, so kia ora. My name's Emma Hunter, and what I'm going to share with you today is a weaving together of two rivers of knowledge, and that's kind of the basis of my doctoral research. And I'm going to talk to you about Maturanga Māori and trauma-informed education and how they can flow together and weave together to build resilience and belonging in Aotearoa New Zealand schools. Um, I'll give you a little bit of background. When our tamariki, our children, and our rangatahi, our teenagers, feel safe, seen, and heard, they feel connected and they thrive. Yet, unfortunately, in Aotearoa, New Zealand, like in many places across the world that are colonised countries, too many First Nations people in New Zealand, our Māori people, experience disconnection and are overrepresented in negative statistics. So today I'm going to share with you and explain how my doctoral research explores the weaving of Maturanga Māori, which is Māori worldview, and trauma-informed educational neuroscience through the theoretical framework of He Awawhiria, which is the braided rivers to lead trauma-informed change through education in New Zealand. But first of all, a little bit about myself. And now I said that I wasn't going to have any more problems, but there we go. We did get that next slide. So ko wai aho, who am I? My whakapapa, my lineage, my history grounds me not just to who I am, but how I listen as a researcher, as a teacher, and as a human. Through whānau ngā which is in New Zealand what we call relationships. I've learned and I'm trying, and I honestly, I don't always get this right. I lead with humility and curiosity, and I go really carefully as a non-Māori researcher, walking alongside and with tangata whenua, New Zealand Māori, the people of our land. So the whakapapa, my history, grounds me in my research. Just a little bit about me, ko Meriden, Ina rangi, toku tūranga waiwai, nor whakatū aho, ko Emma toku ingoa, I am Emma, that is me. So as I said before, I stand here as a non-Māori researcher, but what I just said to you before in Te Reo Māori is ko Meriden Inarangi Tuku Tūranga Waiwai is the place where I was born in England, Meriden, a little village in England, and Whakatū Aho is where I live in New Zealand, in Nelson in New Zealand, and both places sit geographically as the centre of England and the centre of New Zealand. To me, and it took me ages and ages and ages, like even way into my adulthood, way into like as an educational leader, like took me a long time to realize the significance of that. being born in the geographical centre of England, living, working, leading, researching in the geographical centre of New Zealand, it's taught me to lead with the heart and to really listen. And so I embed that really deeply in what I do. So my mahi, my work, has always been about whānau-ngātanga, relationships, community, and belonging, even if I didn't quite realise it and couldn't articulate that immediately. I realise that more and more day to day with what I do. So being connected to the centre of both places is a personal reminder to me with the research that I do to keep relationships at the centre of my practice and my research. Whānau-ngātanga is, for me, relationships is not just a principle, it's the heartbeat that guides me and how I show up, how I listen, and how I learn alongside others. So that sets the scene for my research. To set the scene a little bit, the need for change and why I'm doing what I'm doing, Māori are tangata whenua, the people of our land in New Zealand. Māori ākonga learners remain overrepresented in negative education statistics around disengagement, dysregulation, exclusion, and this is an overrepresentation. It is a systemic challenge. It is not around learner deficit. And you'll see by the stats I've put up there. In New Zealand, Māori, our tamariki, our children, are 3 times more likely to be stood down or suspended than their Pākehā, their European peers, and 4 times more likely to not attend school. So they're really stark data. In recent years in New Zealand, like in many countries, particularly post-COVID, our schools have seen rising emotional dysregulation and school absenteeism. Government responses in New Zealand, for example, have generally lean towards behaviourist and punitive models and approaches that are not trauma informed and inclusive. The numbers that I've got here are just surface and are just a tiny drop in the ocean. And like I said, the stories are not of deficit, they're reflections of a system that are not yet listening deeply enough. And what we need are approaches that honour identity, culture, and connection. But what is trauma-informed education? In education circles, it's kind of bandied around a little bit. At the heart of it, it's about creating conditions where everyone feels safe and supported emotionally, physically, socially, and spiritually. When we lead with safety, relationships, and belonging, we're then able to lead for learning, and it's creating that space for learning when we have the emotional, physical, social, and spiritual conditions all there, then the learning can take place. So the emotionally safe relationships means we have emotionally safe learners, whereas our policymakers often think, boom, chuck the kids in school, they can learn, and that's not the way it happens. I want to draw your attention now to a really powerful model that we have in New Zealand called Te Whare Tapa Whā, the Māori model of hauora or well-being. And we can align this beautifully with trauma-informed education. It's developed by Dr. Mason Drury, and the connection is even more beautiful when we align this with trauma-informed education. But let me take you through what Te Whare Tapa Whā is. It's 4 walls of a whare or a house, and each wall represents a different dimension of well-being. Taha Tinana, physical, taha hinanaro, which is emotions or emotional well-being, Taha whānau, which is relationships and family, and taha wairua, which is our spirituality. And when you link that and weave that with a trauma-informed lens, it's around the physical safety, emotional regulation, belonging in relationships, purpose and identity. Together, these form our house of well-being. And from a trauma-informed lens, we can think of this whare as a foundation of safety that enables learning to occur. From a well-being lens, it's our whole sense of well-being. When one wall is fragile, the whole whare or the whole house is at risk, just like in our home. We have to have all walls stable and well. It's interconnected. The model reminds us that supporting our tamariki, our young people, it requires us to strengthen every wall. It's not just about patching things up and hoping for the best. This leads me into the weaving of Mātauranga Māori and Western neuroscience or trauma-informed education to create new knowledge. This is now leading into the foundation of the theoretical framework of my research. He Awawhiria, the Braided River, developed by the late Dr. Angus MacFarlane and colleagues, is an invitation to weave together different streams of knowledge. So Indigenous streams of knowledge, Mātauranga Māori, and Western streams of knowledge, trauma-informed education and neuroscience. The Indigenous stream, Mātauranga Māori, Māori worldview, brings with it traditional knowledge and wisdom of connection, whakapapa history, collective well-being, the hauora that I talked about with Te Whare Tapa Whā, and the whānau ngā tanga, the connection and relationships. The Western stream, trauma-informed education and neuroscience, relational neurobiology, regulation, relational practice, whole brain approaches, at their intersection, which is the research that I'm doing, lies the opportunity for innovation, a space and potential for new knowledge creation, developed through a process of respect, reciprocity, of learning, and possibility. The Awawhiria gives us a way to braid, not blend knowledge systems. Each weave of the river brings with it its own integrity while creating new understanding where knowledge meets. This framework helps us move beyond tokenism to research that is relational, ethical, and genuinely bicultural. Why is this so important? I'm going to share with you three different key Mātauranga Māori concepts: whānau ngā tanga, manaakitanga, and kotahitanga. I've talked about whānau ngā tanga in terms of relationships. Manaakitanga is kindness, care, and support for each other, and kotahitanga, unity and togetherness. Trauma-informed, culturally responsive practices intrinsically weave together a cultural and relational neuroscience-informed lens that can support young people to experience safety and connection, creating the foundation for learning. That takes me to the paradox we're currently experiencing in New Zealand and many other countries, because the data in New Zealand tells us a different story. Our New Zealand Māori ākonga learners are more likely to be stood down, excluded, experience absenteeism, and yet we have beautiful Mātauranga Māori concepts of whānau ngā tanga and manaakitanga and kotahitanga. So we have a system that is disconnected from this wisdom. Our system is not aligning with what we already have available to us. So basically, despite centuries of Indigenous knowledge that align perfectly with those worldviews, our systems continue to privilege non-Maori worldviews, and that's reflected in the outcomes that we are seeing. Which brings me to the methodology, or He Awa Whiria in action. What I'm trying to do is bring together research that adopts an explanatory sequential mixed methods design guided by He Awa Whiria that weaves qualitative and quantitative streams through hui and wānanga, which is bringing together groups and conversations with educators, whānau, which is family, iwi, groups of Māori leaders, and also bring together kaumātua Māori elders and leaders to lead and guide this research. But it's not research on people, it is research with and for communities through a process of ako, which is reciprocity of learning. The goal is about co-defining what culturally responsive trauma-informed practice looks like when it is grounded in Māori wisdom and trauma-informed practice that aligns with neuroscience. It's about me working with people and with those Western streams of knowledge and with the Maturanga Māori streams of knowledge. We know that trauma-informed education supports well-being and engagement in learning, but we don't know how educators and educational leaders are implementing those trauma-informed practices. So for me, it's about working with people and going out to the sector and getting that information in a culturally respectful way. So it's around safety before strategy. It's around using those concepts of whānau-nā-tanga, manaakitanga, and kotahitanga to inform this research. It's about understanding what educators, families, and community leaders believe should be included in culturally responsive, trauma-informed guidelines to help the sector and help educators and education leaders shift the paradigm moving forward. Because this is a global platform, I wanted to link this into the global relevance around He Awa Whiria, because He Awa Whiria provides a model that goes potentially beyond Aotearoa New Zealand as a way for researchers to walk ethically across knowledge systems. It's an opportunity to braid knowledge without losing the source of Indigenous knowledge. It's a way to collaborate with communities with integrity and humility. And it can be used across multiple contexts, not just with the context that I'm using it in a trauma-informed education lens. It can be used, and it has been used before, across different contexts. He Awa Whiria offers a meaningful way to walk alongside tangata whenua, supporting the sharing of knowledge creation through genuine relationships, a process of working with, rather than another researcher coming along and imposing upon Indigenous communities. I would like to finish with a whakatauki that I hope brings and weaves that idea together. Mā te rongo ka mohio, mā te mohio ka marama, mā te marama ka mātou, mā te mātou ka ora. Through listening comes knowledge. Through knowledge comes understanding. Through understanding comes wisdom. Through wisdom comes well-being. And this reminds me that true transformation begins with listening. When we listen deeply, we can go from awareness to understanding, and then to knowledge and well-being. And that's the essence of trauma-informed, culturally responsive leadership, and hopefully change for our sector. Thank you for listening and putting up with some of the technical glitches. Is there any questions that people may have?
Thank you so much.